Hello, and thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. My name is Kara, and I'm a holistic health practitioner for both people and pets. After working for years in the conventional medicine field, I realized that while our lifespans may be getting longer, our health spans are rapidly shrinking. And when it comes to our pets, both their length and quality of life are decreasing. When I turned to functional medicine and a more holistic approach to health, I saw dramatic improvements for my pets, myself, and my patients. Join me each week as I merge natural health for people and pets by focusing on the root cause of disease and applying raw, real remedies that you can use to improve overall wellness for every member of your family, including the furry ones. Welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm with the super cool Lauren Becks, owner and founder of Girls Gone Raw Pet Health. Lauren is an innovator, entrepreneur, educator, and dedicated dog and human mom. If you don't know already, the goal of Lauren and Girls Gone Raw is to provide unique, nutrition-packed, carnivore-focused, dehydrated treats and chews for your fur babies. You all know that sourcing and transparency are really important to me, which is why I love that Lauren hand selects the highest quality human-grade meats and fosters relationships with small, generational family farms. She's bringing your furry family members nutrition as nature intended in a fun and unique package. I know you'll enjoy our conversation about a species-appropriate diet and both the exciting and challenging aspects of running a business in the holistic pet space. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, everybody, welcome back to Raw Remedies Podcast. And on this episode, my amazing guest today is Lauren from Girls Gone Raw. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. And I actually have Bear here today, who is being a bit of a wiggle butt, but he's very excited to have you as well.
We love him. Stay, Bear. Stay forever.
Oh, Bear. Thank you so much for taking the time out of the middle of a workday to come on and chat with us. And I think to start off, the thing that really intrigues me for everybody is just hearing a little bit about the journey that brought you to the holistic pet space. Because it's really, I find it's like very similar, but also very unique for everybody I talk to. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey.
I agree. I think it's both similar and unique to most of the people that I've found and find are very influential to me. Um, it's a kind of combination of things that I think came together in a cool way. So growing up, I was always a crazy dog girl. I had a black lab and she was my life. And then after that, a chocolate lab and she was my life. And we would just adventure together. But growing up, like they all got cancer one after another. And they all had, I remember, chronic yeasty ears and arthritis and skin conditions. And
Mhm.
that was just the normal. We fed Eukanuba. I can still remember like the grainy texture of those massive kibbles and those paper
Yeah.
bags. You know, it's like a weird
Big
tactile
yellow
memory.
bag. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And we were like so confused when our dog all of a sudden got aggressive mammary cancer at like 8 years old. So we lost one. And then, despite all of our absolute best effort, we got mammary cancer in the last two females as well. So I was in college and I was working in vet clinics and I have aggressive ADHD. I'm not exactly a student in my heart. You know what I mean? I'm like, I would rather be in the field. So
Yeah.
I was just like so sick of it. And I was so sick of working in these clinics with these like miserable people. And I was like, man, I just don't know that I'm cut out for like for veterinary school.
Yeah.
And I was working with all these other people who were just diehard. Like that was what they were going to do, and they're going to do anything to get there. And I'm like, I just don't know that I have that in me. But I know that my passion is in the pet industry, so let's pivot.
Mhm.
So I did. I kind of took my pre-vet degree and I gutted prerequisites, so like physics, organic chemistry, stuff like that. And I started taking nutrition classes, like animal nutrition, biology, zoology, conservation classes, and things like that.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick any of them that like really turned it around, I was taking animal nutrition and comparative vertebrate anatomy all in the same semester.
Okay.
And so I'd go from, animal nutrition where we were formulating basically kibble diets or like chicken feed and things like that. And then I'd go into comparative vertebrate anatomy where we'd be comparing the stomach and digestive tract of a carnivore versus a human versus
Mhm.
a, you know what I mean? And I was like, interesting. Like just the way that everything was built. And I've always loved anatomy and the fact that it's so straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at it, you can hold it in your hands, and everything is it's so beautifully made to work together. And I'm like, I'm not a religious person, but I'm so spiritual about the synergy of how a body works and how the environment is meant to nourish it. I think it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So then we've become so disconnected from that. And I grew up kind of crunchy. I had like a holistic mom. We were getting arnica before we were getting ibuprofen. So it started to just kind of ring bells with me that I'm like, why are you feeding chickens beef meal? Because they're like, well, they need protein, so we're feeding them meat and bone meal and blood meal. And I'm like, why not
Yeah.
like mealworms
Yeah.
or like bugs? I started to kind of raise flags in my nutrition class. Like we were
Mhm.
interviewing, yeah, like I think it was a chicken feed nutritionist or something, and I was asking her questions like that. And my nutrition teacher afterwards was like, hey, have you ever thought about going into this? Like you're asking the questions that most people don't even think about. And I was like, hmm. But I also didn't want to just sit behind a computer and do calculations all day.
Mhm.
So I was like, "Ah, it's just not a perfect fit." And then I was working at the zoo and I was working in wildlife centers where we were stuffing, oh yeah, I was feeding horse meat meatballs to polar bears. Like it was the coolest job. It was 2 semesters of working at the Columbus Zoo. Amazing. I worked in various wildlife centers. We were chopping up, we'd get like fresh roadkill. And that's just what it was. You don't
Yeah.
have a prescription food for a hawk. At the zoo, they did. They fed them Missouri kibbles, basically. And I was like, God, that's just such a shame. And then I was working in a pet store, like a local independent, and we were getting the reps in, and I started talking to them, and I was like, that could be a pretty cool job. So, long story short, out of college directly, I applied and was working as a pet food sales rep for Champion Pet Foods. So, I was slinging kibble all around my region. And honestly, I got to be honest with you, I loved it. At the time, that was like we had Primal and Stella and Chewy's and
Yeah.
like Sojos. Like that
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah.
Um, so at the time, Champion Pet Foods was doing pretty good. They had the freeze-dried raw diets and they had the freeze-dried treats and they were the locally made one. Looking back at it now, I'm like, oof. But that was my first super zoo. I told people last year, I was like, oh, it's so weird. Last time I was here, I was slinging kibble.
Yeah.
Here I am slinging body parts. So anyway, I took kind of that zoology and that wildlife biology and that nutrition and then just this anger at this dysbiosis that was happening in seemingly all of my dogs. And I was
Yeah.
like, something's got to give. We can't keep patching up these things because something systemic is happening that's just ruining all of my dogs. There is no reason why 3 dogs should be getting the same
Yeah.
exact ailments. You know what I mean? I understand genetics. You're going to get some cancer sometime. That's a bummer. 3 of them? No.
No. Yeah.
So after I left Champion, I started Girls Gone Raw 1.0. I say, and I was doing like the turmeric paste and a raw kefir and like some selective diets for people and kind of wasn't doing it right. I was young and I didn't have focus. 2020 came back and I had like $5 in my pocket and some dehydrators. And I was like, you know what? We're going to
Let's.
do it to it.
Yes.
And here we are. And so some people are like, so like, how did you get into what you do? And I'm like, I gotta be honest, like, I think I was the only one willing to do it. Like, it's pretty
Yeah.
gross. Gotta be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's not a
it is.
glorious job,
Yeah.
but
It's
I love every
gooey.
bit of it.
It's smelly. I mean, it's not
Oh,
like.
it's smelly.
Yeah.
I finding employees for what I do is so silly. And for everybody who
Yeah.
doesn't know what I do, I basically dehydrate body parts for dogs. When everybody asks, like, yeah, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, I dry body parts in my garage.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
I
But
thaw body
we
parts
do.
in my garage, so yeah, I get it. They
Fair
come
enough.
in big bulk containers, and I have to set them out um in my like tubs, and they just sit there and they
Oh
thaw, and
yeah.
it's gross.
It's yeah, so I have that, but like times a million. But I love it because I also kind of grew up in like a farm area. So
Yeah.
and I've ironically was a vegetarian for the
Huh.
strangest plot twist there. I was a vegetarian, but not because I don't think we should eat animals, but because I think it's so disrespectful how
Mm.
wasteful the meat industry is. People don't even need to recognize that that was once a life, a living, breathing soul. And so people think that I'm like some sociopath because I'm like so meat centered. And I'm like, actually, I think I'm the opposite because I'm so close to it. I
Yeah.
forced myself to watch the videos of processing because I think that to be able to reap the benefits of those lives, that I should have to see the hard part
Right.
and to understand the process of it. And I just think that using the whole animal in the way that we do it is, I think it's the most respectful way to go about it. So every time I tell people I was a vegetarian, they're like, "What?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Actually, it makes sense."
I totally agree. I think that having respect for every part of the process, including the ones that are like difficult or controversial, or the ones that make you sad, or the ones that make you queasy, are
Yeah.
really important. And that's why I wanted, I mean, because you talk about sourcing, and we're going to get to that eventually, but I love how it's so funny, and I don't mean to draw parallels with people, but so much of your journey and story is like similar to mine, because my first
Mhm.
ever job when I was 17 years old was actually working at the Buffalo Zoo, which
I
is
love
where I'm
it.
from, Buffalo, New York. Yep. And so I was working at the zoo, and I always knew I wanted to do something with animals, and I wasn't sure what. And I was
Hmm.
like, when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm going to be an animal cop. And then I got a little bit older, and I was like, I'm going to be a marine biologist. And then
Yeah.
Steve Irwin tragically died from stingray to the heart, and I was like, nope, no marine biologist for me. So I decided to go into veterinary school. I was working at the zoo. I loved. I would get to like take out the small animals and show them to the kids for birthday parties, and I would tell them facts about them and let them touch them, and it was so cool. So I was like, "That's it. I'm going to be a vet." And
Yeah.
I was in my last year of prereqs when my childhood cat, who was only 10 at the time, went into kidney failure, and the signs were all there for years. But we didn't know. We weren't holistic. She literally ate like grocery store kibble. Like, I don't even know what the
Mm.
brand was. No wet food, recurrent UTIs, always super anxious. And one
Yeah.
day she just went into florid kidney failure, and my grandparents had to unfortunately make the heartbreaking decision to euthanize her that day, because
Yeah.
we lived on two retirement salaries, like just, Social Security, and they didn't have the money for that. And the option was thousands of dollars of maybe IV fluids and no guarantee, or euthanasia. So that's what we did. And the very next day, I went to my college and I was like, I can't do this. What else can I do? And somehow that translated to nursing, which I don't know why it's easier for me to watch people who are sick compared to animals. But it's funny that I turned away from it so many years ago, and now here I am a little over a decade later, and I stepped back into the holistic animal. Well, I stepped into the holistic animal space, right? I ended up here anyways, and that's what just tells me that I was meant to be here, even though the journey was a little bit more roundabout rather than
All
linear.
around it. Yeah, I mean, I worked in sales. I worked in, I don't even know, some other jobs. And now looking back at it, and I'm like, listen, I don't, for my personality match, like, I
Mhm.
don't see myself doing anything else.
Mhm.
Am I raking in the dough like I could be with a degree? No.
Mhm.
But every day I wake up and do a job that just thrills me.
Yeah.
And every day I get to talk to people who I feel like I've influenced their pets' lives for the better. I've
Yeah.
influenced their lives, for education. And that's what, like, you go on my social media, very, except for like now with the carnivore crate, because I realize that like you have to market in order to like make money in business.
Yeah.
You could go on and barely know what I make
Yeah.
because I don't use my platform for sales. I use my platform for education. And like if
Yeah.
I had to go on, like I could have a completely separate platform, I think, just for the education where I didn't have the pressure of like having to sell stuff. Um, and that's kind of, I think my company grew very quickly in the beginning because I think I put myself out there and then people trusted me. And
Yeah.
then because people trusted me, and like, I mean, I know myself, I can tell you what my intentions are, but I'm telling you wholeheartedly, like, I just want your dogs and your cats and your birds and your snakes and your ferrets to live as long and healthy as possible, as
Yeah.
in touch with nature as they can physically be. And this company is somehow the result of that. It's like the means to the end. It's like you get the treats in there, and then I'm like, while I'm talking to you, and it's
Yep.
just so cool. I wake up every day and I'm like, I'm so lucky to do what I want to do. Especially, I have a 5-year-old, and it's so rare for moms, I think, to be able to have good, balanced family lives. and
Yeah.
also follow a passion. Most of the time, you're forced to take whatever job's going to pay the bills. I was lucky that I had family to support me and help me get my feet under me, but I now get to show my son what it's like to be passionate. And he's absolutely obsessed with the animals. He thinks it's the coolest thing. And he tells everybody about Girls Gone Raw and he tells everybody about mommy's dog treats. And it's cool, I think, raising the next generation of crazy dog people.
Of course, my dogs are barking now as I'm going to respond to you, but I agree. I think like showing kids and showing the younger generation that passion is so important because for the longest time, I would hear people say like, oh, back to the grind, right? 9 to 5, like working for the vacation. And it's like, oh, no. And
Scam.
yeah,
It's a
and that was me for
scam.
a really long time. I mean, shush, Bear. Bear's excited to hear this. But no, I mean, I've worked in conventional medicine now for a decade, and I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm going to be moving out of the hospital, like out of critical care, and into a setting where I can be proactive with my patients instead of reactive. And
Yeah.
there's always going to be a need for emergency medicine, and I love it. I mean, I'm really passionate about it, but I'm getting to the point where I don't want to just be slapping a band-aid over like the gaping wound of chronic disease. And that's what we
Yeah.
do in the hospital setting, right? I want to be able to actually patch that up and fix it so that it doesn't become like a festering lifelong problem.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for this next chapter. And if I hadn't been here, if I hadn't been in this space with the animals who taught me how necessary this was and pushed me to actually move into functional healthcare instead of conventional healthcare, it never would have changed. And I probably would have been burnt out in the next 10 years. I understand why so many healthcare professionals get to the point where they lack empathy and they have like compassion burnout. It's really tough. And I don't ever want that to be me. So
I've worked in human medical too, but I just don't like people very much.
people are kind of the worst. I know. But you know what's nice about people? They can actually talk back to you, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, and you can tell them like, "Hey, this is a partnership, and if you don't do your part, I can't effectively do my part." And I think that can be really difficult when it comes to the animal aspect because you're talking to the pet guardian, but you can't convince an animal to eat something that they really don't want, or you can't
Yeah.
convince them to do something that they're not thrilled about. And so that can make it a little bit harder because there's no like understanding of consequences. Whereas with people,
Yeah.
sometimes if you go that extra mile and you take the extra time to explain to them, like, listen, this is what's hurting you, or this is what could really be helping you. That connection is what can be the catalyst for change. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
keep doing what I do with the animals and then also start doing something similar for people.
And we just are so far from the balance of nature and even just the cycle of generational living
Mhm.
and growing your own food and
Mhm.
having to raise the meat that you're eating and or hunt for the I love hunting, responsible hunting.
Yeah.
You worked for that. You worked hard to bring home that bounty for your family. Use the
Mhm.
whole thing. Use the skin, give the bones and organs to your dogs. If I could just like brain zap something into the entire world's head, it's just like it's harmonious, holistic mindset of looking at things like, yeah, no wonder our dogs are falling apart. Nothing about how they're living as our little house pets is anything like their biology is built for. I mean, they're walking on synthetic fibers every day on our carpets and on our floors, and then sleeping in synthetic fragrances and fire retardants, and then
Yep.
eating chemical laden, synthetically balanced food. And so, of course, they're falling apart biologically because we've taken them out of biology. There's only so much that you can get people to do. And look, I get it, change is hard, but I think the world's coming around to it a little bit. We do have dye-free things and fragrance-free laundry detergents and stuff. They're not
Mhm.
perfect. So I figure if we could at least get people to swap out the treats that they're feeding, a lot of
Yeah.
times the treats that people are buying from me is the only real food that their dogs are getting, the only unadulterated meats that their dog is getting.
any little piece, right, to just kind of bring it closer to nature, and
Yeah.
what nature
Go
intended.
out and touch grass.
Yeah, go out and touch the grass, smell the grass, get rid of the fragrances.
The grass is covered in pesticides and fertilizers, and
I know, I know.
I
Yeah,
like my weedy
don't walk
yard.
on the perfect grass, right? If you're like going to the park with your animal, you're walking down the street with your animal, pick the grass that has weeds in it because that's the one that wasn't sprayed
Uh,
with pesticides. So, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, we've talked about like returning to nature and how that's really important. And the phrase species appropriate, I feel like, is just everywhere, right? And we know that we want to live in a species appropriate manner and we want to eat in a species appropriate manner. Bear, do you agree? And so that's why I really love the name of your carnivore crate because we know, right? Dogs are carnivores. And so this is like very geared toward their species appropriate diet, which is meat, bones, fur, etc. And
yeah.
I love that you have this because, so like I have my Vital Paw feeding model, and the whole emphasis of this is like the importance of more organ, more fiber content. I have like a
Mm,
section that specifically is divided up for like small oily fish and shellfish and like the different things that could contribute nutritional benefits essentially. And I
yeah.
like that you have the carnivore crate, which has the different components that are all going toward a species appropriate diet. So can
Mhm.
you tell us about like the different components and how it emphasizes that?
Yeah. My favorite thing about my brand is I'm gonna call it punk rock non-compliance. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because like most people look at my stuff and they're like, "Oh, hell no." And I'm like, "Actually, hell yes. Let's talk about it. Here's why."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even down to like when I was choosing the outfits that I get for like these like Super Zoo and these like Judy Morgan expos and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Man, I just don't like a collared shirt. Hear me out. Let's go crop tops and branded Converse." You gotta be authentic sometimes. But okay, to the cardboard crate, yeah, I wanted to, and I'm holding up a box for our listeners here, but I wanted to be inclusive with it. So I kind of have my products rated like R, PG, PG-13, because I'm
I
like,
love it.
what would your grandmother not throw up looking at? You know what I mean? And then like, what do the hardcore people like? And I like to push the boundary of that a little bit because, and I mean this in the best way possible, you don't get to choose it. It's coming to you. Like you might not choose a foot, but once you get it, does your dog like it? Then you're going to see it. You're going to be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But also,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, the people that are subscribing to this are freaks like me. So, um, we like to brand everything very pink because again, I think it's disgusting and then pink is so pretty.
I love it.
And and I've wanted to do this for so long, but we make it very personal. So I have like everybody's names, it's all heart and pink and cute, and then you get in there and it's just meat.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite part about it, I think, though, has been collaborating with all these brands so far, and I have so many cool ones coming up. Like we're going to work with Angela Ardolino, one of her brands. We're going to work with Dr. Harvey's. So far we've done like an organic hemp rope toy with a really cool small business out of South Carolina. And then
Cool.
we did a natural bug spray because it was like, what was that, March, April? April. So we're just getting outside, a natural
Mhm.
bug spray, which I love for myself. I have all of these brands that I love and I trust. And I
Yeah.
think that by giving all of these people that are getting this crate and my followers and people that trust me brands that I trust, it's like putting tools into their toolbox. Like
Yeah.
you might be like, oh, my dog doesn't need CBD, but then they try it and they're like, oh, that was actually really beneficial. And then they start kind of going into that rabbit hole. They
Yeah.
might, not think that they need natural pest control, but then they're like, oh, actually that spray was nice. It was not
Mhm.
that hard to put it on them. I just think of it kind of as filling their toolbox with cool new brands. And it's just fun to do partnerships also because there's so many of us in the industry that, like you said, have similar stories and similar
Mhm.
intentions. This one was definitely, I feel like a push the boundary month too, because I did the fish heads. Did you
Yes.
get yours yet or no?
As we're recording, it's in transit. It says it's going to be here in a
Yeah.
couple of days. So by the time I release this episode, and people who are listening, you can hop over to my socials now because definitely you'll see
Oh
some
yeah.
posts on there about the crate. I'm going to do an unboxing. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Bear is really excited right
And
there.
if you're listening, I want to make sure I don't forget because I keep forgetting this. I am doing a referral program so that if they drop your podcast name or your socials or even your name in the
Yeah.
referral sign up, when you go to sign up, a whole profile page pops down. It'll ask you
Yeah.
what your dog's name is, dog, cat, whatever. We have a couple cats in it. What your pet's name is, their sizes and breeds, a little bit about them. What do they like? What do they not like? Is there any allergies? Because I work with so many different proteins. That's we're gonna
Yeah.
find something. You might get a repeat or two, but we'll figure it out with you. And even just, do they not like fish? Do they not like rabbit feet? You know, there's a lot of people that have been like, hey, apparently my dog doesn't like this. Can you just put that on their profile card? And that way we
Yeah.
can kind of curate it. So this month we had a lot of curations because not every dog is really into fish, but this is a funny one, yeah, because we had like three stinky fish heads. They got eyeballs and everything. But
Yeah.
in that, I mean, you have the brain and all these like good oils and everything, and they're kind of gross, but dogs go nuts
Yeah.
on them.
Well, I love that
So
that's
that's a
all in
really
there,
fun one.
right? Because it's like you get your complete
Yeah,
protein. You have some muscle meat, you're getting a secreting organ, you're getting a muscular organ, you have the skeleton, so you have some bone in there, and that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, we've had fish heads here
yeah.
before, never dehydrated. I actually fed them fresh fish heads one time. One dog said
They're very
yes, the other
crunchy.
two said, "What on earth are you trying to
Why
give
the hell would
me?"
you put that in front of me? I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. I've never had picky dogs, so everyone's always like,
Mhm.
"Oh, so like, what are your dogs like?" I'm like, I don't know, trash,
Everything.
dirt,
Yeah. Cat
everything.
shit.
There's nothing they would say no to. Literally everything. So yeah, that was, I tried to do 1 to 2 package treats. I aimed for two, and because we had the CBD treats, I just
Mhm.
did this. This was our package treat. Last month we had like some little rabbit treats with mushrooms and greens and all sorts of amazing stuff.
Cool.
And then the pork and apple sticks. So we do 2 package treats. And then I think I have like 3 to 6 chews. And one of them will always be a heavy chew. So I am thrilled about these. My Rottweiler, who is an absolute monster, took
Yep.
forever on these. And so
Mhm.
this is a locally farmed beef scapula. I should also add, for those who don't know me, everything that we do is either locally farmed or human grade. Like if I can't get it locally and
Yeah.
ethically, then we're going human grade on it.
Yeah.
Um, because we also need to be able to keep things priced so that you guys can afford it.
Yeah.
And so, as much as I would love the freedom to do everything locally farmed, there's
Mhm.
not bison in Ohio. There's also not shrimp in Ohio.
Yeah.
So, we do our best. But this is a locally farmed beef scapula, and I love these. Like, that is just a massive
Yeah.
sheet of cartilage, and they are so fibrous and amazing.
So I'm like looking at you holding it up. I feel like it's like the size of your forearm. Like it's
It's
humongous.
literally, it is. I mean, that's
Yep.
huge.
Amazing. It's
They vary a lot. So, some are going to be smaller, some are going to be bigger, but I mean, they're huge. We were shocked. We're like, oh God, are those gonna fit in the boxes? And they did. Like it has to go diagonally,
yeah.
but they fit in there. So then I do one heavy chew and then a couple kind of varying, and we like to not do any repeats. And this month's focus was on cooling proteins because it was like chill out, dogs. So we did
Yeah.
CBD
Yeah.
and cooling proteins. Um, I always like to do one hairy item, hairy or feathery. We might be putting some quail in there
Awesome.
soon, but
Fiber. Yeah.
yep. So this is a rabbit ear. We've done like a rabbit hide roll before. We might be putting some rabbit heads in, but I was afraid that I was going to scare people.
I will take all your
I
rabbit.
almost have to decide. I have a couple of people that put in their bios, they're like, we love everything disgusting and weird. I was like, noted. Like,
Mhm.
you're getting head. So I think we might do kind of two variations going
Yeah.
forward because I'd love to get the whole quail and the heads in there, but I also don't want to scare people off. I have to be
Yeah.
kind of delicate with it. That's why, like, when I do my market booths, you have um like the bagged stuff and the kind of cutesy stuff on one side, and then my raw bar with all the hairy stuff and the big body parts and
Yeah.
stinky stuff on the other side. So if they come in, they're like, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." I'm like, "Go over that way, go over that way."
Go this way. Yeah. Yeah. Over here we have hairy and scary. Over there we have packaged and pretty.
Oh my God. Hairy and scary. I'm gonna do that for my next market. Um, and so we had fish
Yeah.
heads, the gigantic beef scapula, and then frog legs. And I
Cool.
love these. I get a lot of love on these ones from people because they're really hard to find. And these are
Yeah.
human grade. Like if you were to go to some bougie French restaurant and order frog legs. And then we did a duck neck. Duck is one of my
Love it.
favorite cooling proteins. Works with
Yeah.
almost every, like even if dogs have chicken allergies, most of the time they can handle duck.
Yep.
So we did a duck head or a duck neck, and I really like these. They're an appropriate size for a big dog and a little dog. Great
Mhm.
for your teeth. Lots of good glucosamine chondroitin in there. So yeah, like
Nice.
we had some hairy, we had some scary, we had some chewy and crunchy, and every month we change it up. And I even had people that were like, you know what? I'm just struggling. My dog is just like, can't have so many things. And I'm like, give me a
Mhm.
list of safe foods. We'll put it on your profile and we'll just make you a
Find it.
box. A lot of dogs are really sensitive, and I have access to a lot of really cool proteins and products. And the nice thing is, it's all single ingredient. It's a labor of love sometimes, but I just get the whole team in there a couple days beforehand and we're just packing. And I handwrite all of these boxes, man.
I love that. That's awesome. So,
I think it's like my
so
little love letter.
your your love letter. I can't wait to get my love letter. So, okay, I want
I
to talk
know.
a little bit about you now. And oh, so does Bear apparently.
Yeah.
We broke down the crate. I love the diversity. I love that it's mimicking the species appropriate diet. But the
Mm,
aspect that I think a lot of people don't think about as much is the actual business behind the product. So I'm
yeah.
an independent business owner. It's literally just me. I'm a one woman show and it can be like really tough sometimes, right? I'm doing my
Oh,
socials, I'm
yeah.
doing my content. I make all of the content. I'm doing all of the consults, right? I write up all of the notes. I do the research. I like it's just
On hats,
trading
on
time for
hats,
money,
on
right? Yep.
hats.
Hats on hats on
Yeah.
hats. So like t- it's something that like a phrase that I use a lot, and I have it on my socials, and I talk about it with my clients. Is the difference between simply surviving and then truly thriving is like over here on this side. Simply for surviving is down here. Like, what do
Yeah.
you feel like it takes to not just survive in this realm, but actually make a thriving business?
So I feel very lucky and biased. Um, my business can't fail because it's not just a business, it's my passion. If I stopped selling treats, I would keep going.
Yeah,
If I lost all my money, I would keep going. It's not
yeah,
business is a means, like I said, for me to be able to share my passion.
yeah,
I am very lucky in that. There's days, I mean, I have cried so many times recently because it is, I mean,
yeah,
it's people are brutal.
yeah,
And I love my direct customers are some of the most compassionate, amazing, like pet lovers.
yeah,
And some people are brutal. I mean, I get emails calling me a heartless murderer for selling rabbit treats, and I'm like,
yeah,
you know, um, the industry's weird,
yeah.
and there's a lot of people out there all of a sudden doing exactly what I'm doing that have to work half as hard because they have a budget.
Right. Or they
I
have a
started
name,
out
or they have a sponsor, or they have,
lawyers, maybe
yeah, yeah,
investors.
yep,
I have a credit card. You know what I mean? I have no
yep,
like I've not gotten any loans. I haven't gotten investors. I haven't even done like lines of
yeah,
credit. I'm really just trying to do it as cleanly as possible. You should have seen me trying to learn how to read a freaking profit and loss report. And honestly, I'm like, taxes are like Greek to me.
yeah,
There are some tools like Score is a really cool nonprofit, like government paid business organization. And I had an advisor through that for years. Look at that head in the back. Oh my gosh.
oh, nice.
Um, and I've been told I have good instincts. We're in year 5 and we're still growing. Um, but there reached a point where my knowledge could only do so much. And what I do know is that I know how to be myself, and I
Hmm.
know that my brand can be my voice, or
Yeah,
my voice can be my brand, one of the ways. Um, So I like met this guy locally who we put in hours and hours, probably like 30, 40, 50 hours of meetings so far, reorganizing everything. And he's like, okay, so you are doing everything and you're a terrible finance chair. And I was like, God, I am. I'm terrible at it. What does that mean? He's like, you're also terrible at running the day-to-day of your shop because you're trying to do 50 other things at the same time and you're giving all of your energy to everything. And I'm like, we're big enough now that I have a staff and I have a lot of things moving every day and I have to do podcasts to be able to keep
Hmm.
growing awareness and I have to do social media. Like I have to post and engage and comment and I have to get affiliates and then the carnivore crate. And so I was so lucky to find this person that helped me really organize everything down. He's like, you suck at this. Find somebody else to do it. And I was like, okay, cool. I can do it. But I
Yep.
don't have a lot of money to hire a financial consultant or to hire an accountant. You know, my QuickBooks was wrong. We had to completely redo my QuickBook. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yep. I get it.
But
I get it.
it's when you love something so much, you push through.
Yeah.
Um, and I truly think that if this business was not my full body and soul passion
Yeah.
and being able to go out to Super Zoo and like I'm going to Nautical Dog in like 2 weeks where I'm going to meet people like you and Jess and
Jess.
I
Yeah.
leave those weekends like on fire. That's what I feel like coming out of these and I can't give that up. So that is what gets me through the times. I think that if I didn't have this passion, this last year would have broken me because everybody wants Amazon and everybody wants it cheap, cheap and
Oh,
quick.
I
And
know.
trust me,
I
I
agree.
don't order anything from Amazon unless I'm getting it that day. Don't get me wrong. However, I have sometimes a 14-day turnaround because I'm making some things fresh to order.
Hmm.
We've worked on that, but I'm making small batch stuff, so it's tough sometimes, and people are brutal.
Yeah.
I
It's
keep
hard.
calling me
And
at like
it's,
7 a.m. on a Sunday.
yes, you can't please everyone. It's one of the things that I think you have to accept being in the holistic pet. Well, I mean, really any business, but especially here where we care so deeply and we're so passionate and like what we pour out, we give so much of ourselves that when somebody comes back and they're negative or they're mean,
Oh,
it's so hard to not take it personally and feel like you failed
straight.
them. But really,
Yeah.
you just have to accept that you cannot be everyone's cup of tea. And I love tea, so that's hard for me to accept. But it is what it
Yeah.
is. And I think that if you're putting your passion into it and you know that it's your purpose, you're educating, you're personable, you're authentic,
Hmm.
you'll find a way to make it. But there's one more component that I think is really important that you didn't mention, but that I really struggle with, and that's
Yeah.
patience. I am so
Oh, I don't have
impatient.
that.
I want it now. I want to help
Yeah.
everyone now. I want to reach everyone yesterday. And it's really
Okay.
hard for me to sit back and accept that you have to have like natural growth and you can't just snap your fingers and have, 100,000 person
You're
outreach.
so right.
It's hard.
It is. That's a hard one. Yeah, because then I'm like, I have this amazing idea. Everybody's going to buy it. Your reach and your audience are only what they are. That's a hard one because, I'm working with these advisors and they have these like 5-year, 10-year plans. And I'm like, man, that is so long. You're like, I want like so many people on the crate, but then
Yeah.
you have to trust the process of it. I
Yeah.
think that like the biggest thing that gets me through those periods where I'm like, God, I am putting everything that I have into some marketing push or into some really amazing idea that I have, or I'm like, I'm just putting my full body into it and I'm just not getting a lot. I'm like, I get a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And it is hard to just trust the process in that. And it's always turned out good. I think when you
Yeah.
just keep your head up and keep your light shining.
Ralph Waldo Emerson. One of his quotes is, "Life
Ralph.
is the journey, not the destination." And that is just something that I try and remind myself of all the time. It's part of the reason why my business name is Raw Paw
Yeah.
Adventures, because the whole thing is the adventure, right? You're
Yeah.
not just going for the view, you're going for the hike up the mountain. I think remembering that, and I think that there are a lot of pet professionals who listen to my podcast, not just pet parents. And so for any
Mhm.
of the people who are listening, I hope this speaks to you because it might feel difficult and you might feel frustrated and exhausted, but just if
Yeah.
it's your passion, like just don't give up. And I hope you can hear me over Bear breathing really heavily directly into my microphone. Yeah.
When I was in my 20s and I was coming into this industry and I was learning about raw feeding, I learned from Karen Becker, and she was the only voice out there. She was the only woman out there, and people
Hmm.
just lit her up.
Oh yeah.
And regardless of your opinion about them now, somebody had to be the one out there doing it. And she put a lot of free information out there for a very long time that changed the industry.
Yeah.
And waves are going now. And so
Yeah.
that's my same thing with like my son. And I hope to be able to, maybe do some entrepreneur classes or something going forward. But the only way that we can make this big change in the industry and in the world is by bringing up really good young people. And I'm lucky, I haven't really had a lot, but I see it coming. Like every couple
Yeah.
hundred followers I get one or two more nasty comments or like emails or whatever. Really hard for me to not just be unabashedly entirely myself 100% all the time. Um, and I don't have a lot of friends because it's hard for me to shut off that. But I love how the internet has welcomed that. I mean, people don't come
Yeah.
up to me and they're like, "Oh, your page is something." I get people that come up to me and they're like, "I love your videos. They're so authentic. I feel like we're already friends." And I'm like, "Thank you. That's what I was going for." Because it's so much easier.
It's so rewarding to know that you took your passion, you put everything you had and everything you were out there for the
Yeah.
world to see and I mean completely dissect if they want to. And then what
Oh
comes
yeah.
back at you is like support and just genuine love and appreciation. And
Yeah, I
I
do
love
think
that for
that
you.
we have to put out, I think, like you manifest what you want. So I manifest that energy of a big, successful business. And it's not that I'm not that. I'm certainly not big, but I think then a lot of people assume that I'm a big brand. And I'm like, oh, honey, no,
No.
no, no, no. I'm like, I, we are trenching right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm like, we are certainly growing, but my poor boyfriend is my landlord, my contractor, my employee, my trash guy. You know what I mean? Like, we are doing everything ourselves.
Yep.
Um, so when people call 15 times in a row, and I'm like, I'm so sorry that I didn't pick up your call. I was wiping a butt.
Yeah.
Can I help you? It's 10 p.m. on a Monday.
Yep.
And that's okay. You're gonna get that. You have to learn to compartmentalize. I'm starting to do that. And it's easy to shut off the haters when you get to the point where you can
Yeah.
just log out.
I agree. My husband is all of those things too. And he also ends up being like my emotional support husband. And he
Yeah.
knows like sometimes he comes home and he's like, how was your day, babe? And my face, I have no
Yeah.
filter. I have resting truth face. So you're gonna
Yeah.
see it and he'll see it. And I'll just like blubber like into his shoulder. And he's just so
100%.
good at
That's why
like
we love
being
them. We
there
need
for
emotional support
yeah.
husbands.
Yeah,
Honestly, that's what I
emotional
love.
support significant other, emotional support partners. Like
One thing I also want to say, if there's businesses out there that are kind of in this stage or below that we're in, um, it was, I think, my like first complete year of doing wholesale, and Krista from Pug and Hound in Chicago, they placed an order, and I was like, oh my God, like I had like a handful of wholesale customers. I was working out of my parents' garage where I
yeah.
had the business for a solid 3 years in my parents' two bay garage. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and she's like, can we just swing by and get our order? And I was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. It's not like, a whole shop. And she came up to me as I'm like still trying to frantically get her order together. And she's catheterizing Bruce in my garage floor. And she's like, every business starts on someone's garage floor. Like
Yep.
everybody started in a garage at some point, except for maybe your big trust fund babies. But
Hmm.
that every time that I'm having like an imposter syndrome moment that I'm like, who the
Yeah.
hell do I think I am in this barn? And then I tell myself, everybody was here. Everybody at any stage, I listened to the story of like Answers, Pet Food, and how those women got started.
Hmm.
And everybody had maxed out credit cards
Hmm.
and a shitty credit score at one point, and they
Hmm.
pushed through it. So when I got to a point where I was like, what do I do? And I was reaching out to people, they're like, oh, you're broke? Fantastic. Push sales and don't give up.
Yep.
Everybody, push sales and don't give up. Push sales and don't give up. And I was like, okay, I'm like, fine. And luckily I have enough of a, like I said, kind of a cyclical head on my shoulders that I was I've been able to stay ahead of things, but it's a grind.
Well, I mean, you're going and you are inspiring pet parents and you've certainly
Yeah.
inspired me and I cannot wait for my crate to come in. So I would love for you
Yeah.
to tell people how they can find you and maybe order their own carnivore crate.
Definitely. Yeah. So you can um, order online, girlsgonerawpet.com. And I meant to make a discount code actually for the listeners here today, but we will just do Raw Paw. If you put RAWPAW in the section, it will take 10% off your order online. That doesn't apply to the Carnivore Crate. However, if they mention the Raw Remedies podcast or the Raw Paw Adventures, or even your name, like I said, in the referral, it'll say, like, did a friend refer you?
Yeah.
While filling out that Carnivore Crate profile, then they will get $15 store credit. And yeah, it's a really fun one. It changes every single
Awesome.
month, and we have some amazing months coming up. I'm hoping to get like a popsicle theme going for next month. I may or may not have some super fun 4th of July summery type funny treats coming that my employees are
Cool.
thrilled about.
Oh my gosh, I
It may
can't
or may
wait.
not be. Yeah, I'm like, I'm super excited. And every month I'm like, we have to do something funny. What is it? You know what I mean? There's something cool, something interesting because my life isn't complicated enough. But I love the Carnivore Crate because it's where I get to flex my creativity and my
Yeah.
employees. We all get together and pick what goes into it. And we have some amazing brands coming up. So girlsgonerawpet.com. You can follow us on social. I think it's Girls Gone Raw Pet Health or just Girls Gone Raw. I can't remember which is Instagram or TikTok, but we're on all the things, even Threads. They talked me into Threads. Um, and we like to do a lot of education. I'd love to see pictures of your dog. If you just like
Yes.
literally follow me and say, hey, this is my dog, I'd say amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Amazing. Perfect. All right. I will make sure I put all those in the show notes. I'll link everything. I'll write the instructions for if you want to do the referral
Yes.
so that you can get $15 in store credit or the 10% off of a purchase that is not the carnivore crate. And keep an eye out also on my socials for when my crate arrives so that I can unbox and show Bear thoroughly enjoying it, just like you're enjoying my sock that should actually not be in your mouth right now. He went and found a sock, but oh my gosh, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank
Loved
you for
it.
coming on. I'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Thank you for listening. Please remember that you, yes, you, are the driving force that helps keep small businesses and platforms like mine running. So if you liked what you heard, please like, share, and most importantly, rate this podcast. It's the only way we can reach more people and spread the word about natural health. None of the conditions discussed or recommendations given are meant to replace the advice of your health provider. So if you have concerns about yourself or your pets, please confer with a human or animal health practitioner. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you next week.